We begin today with the latest revelation to leak regarding the National Security Agency. An Italian magazine called Panorama is now reporting that the spy agency has targeted the internal communications at the Vatican along with the ingoing and outgoing phone calls of future Pope Francis. According to the reports, the NSA was intercepting calls from in and out of the Rome residence where the cardinals stayed during the papal conclave. Additionally, the magazine details how the NSA has been categorizing those phone calls into everything from foreign policy objectives to threats to the financial system. Vatican spokesman Father Federico Lombardi quickly dismissed these allegations and said, quote, "We don't know anything about this, and in any case, we don't have any concerns about it." The NSA has also responded to the allegations by saying, quote, "The National Security Agency does not target the Vatican." Assertions that the NSA has targeted the Vatican, published in Italy's Panorama magazine, are not true. However, this article comes in the wake of a damning report based on documents released by former government contractor Edward Snowden. Of course, we know that the spy agency has monitored the communications of 35 different world leaders, along with many of the citizens in their respective countries. So here to give us a little more insight on how the church is responding to these allegations, I'm joined by Jimmy Akin. He's a senior apologist at Catholic.com. Jimmy, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you, Ameera. It's a pleasure to be here.
So at this point, the NSA is flatly denying that these allegations are true. At the same time, the magazine has not cited a source for this information. But whether it's true or not, how detrimental are rumors like this to U.S. relations with the Vatican?
I don't think they're particularly detrimental. The attitude that Father Lombardi displayed in his statement, I think, is pretty typical of what you'd expect. In terms of whether the allegations are true, the Vatican, or I should say the Italian press, is pretty rumor-fed, and without citing sources, you can't really place a lot of confidence in what it says normally. But in this case, we know that all the major world powers spy on all the other major world powers all the time. So I don't think the report is particularly in doubt. I would assume that the U.S. is spying on the Vatican just like it does every other country.
And like you mentioned, the Vatican is saying that they're not at all concerned about this. Of course, it is a very different reaction than that of other countries who have found out that they are being spied on. I mean, what do you really make of that response?
I think it's because I think the difference is because of what the Vatican is. If you're a normal country like Germany or England or France, you know the U.S. is spying on you. But when that comes to the attention of the press, you want to act outraged to reassure your population that you're taking steps to deal with the problem. On the other hand, the Holy See is not a normal nation. It's not concerned with national politicking the way France or Germany or England would be. Instead, it's concerned with getting the message of Jesus Christ out to the world. And so its native instinct is going to be to try to rise above that kind of national politicking outrage.
Sure. And Jimmy, you know, we've long heard popes rail against war and income inequality. Not quite the most controversial of issues. So why do you think the NSA even cares about what's going on at the Vatican?
Well, the Holy See is the head of the Catholic Church. I mean, it's the organization that heads the Catholic Church, and 1 in 6 human beings is a Catholic. There are 1 billion Catholics in the world. That means that the Pope and the people around him have a lot of influence in the world, and it would only be natural that the U.S. would be interested in what they're planning on doing. And indeed, the Holy See has cooperated with the U.S. significantly in the past. It had a role, for example, in ending the Cold War and bringing down the Soviet bloc. Pope John Paul II cooperated with Margaret Thatcher and Ronald Reagan to do that. He did it in a behind-the-scenes way, but that was an important incident of cooperation. The Holy See has also taken positions that have influenced American policy in other ways. Most recently, when President Obama seemed intent on going to war with Syria, the current Pope, Pope Francis, organized a World Day of Prayer to stop that. And guess what? We're not at war with Syria.
Absolutely. Well, according to the magazine, the NSA has been categorizing the Vatican's communication into 4 different categories. I want to take a look at them. There's leadership intentions, what they call leadership intentions, foreign policy objectives, human rights, and then threats to the financial system. Now, I find the last one the most interesting. What threats to the financial system does the Vatican pose, or might it pose?
Well, that one's a bit of a head scratcher for me because the Holy See doesn't have a particularly large amount of economic clout. Occasionally, the Holy See will make statements about policy suggestions for maybe how to help the world economy and how to help people grow and develop, particularly in the developing world. But it doesn't wield a lot of financial power. It isn't that big financially. It does have an institute known as the Institute for the Works of Religion, which is kind of a bank that's set up to help coordinate charitable activities. And currently, the Pope, both Pope Francis and his predecessor, Pope Benedict, have been working to kind of clean up some of the activity there and put the Vatican Bank on a more rigorous footing and integrate it into the European banking system. But it's a small bank in the scale of things, and so I don't really know what kind of threats they would imagine the Holy See would pose.
Well, it's all very, very interesting. I really appreciate you coming on and giving us some insight on that. Jimmy Akin, Senior Apologist at Catholic.com. Thank you.
Thank you.